The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wider than any Earth stadium. Alien delegates from 100 worlds filled the floating platforms, their forms ranging from crystalline beings to creatures of pure energy. At the center, the Council's 7 supreme members sat on their elevated thrones, each representing the most powerful species in known space. Ambassador Chun floated forward on her diplomatic platform, the lone human representative among thousands. Behind her stood her small team, including one person who seemed out of place among the diplomats. Marcus Rodriguez, former United States Marine, stood with his arms crossed, scanning the room with eyes that had seen too much. The Zafrani Supreme Counselor's telepathic voice echoed through every mind present. The human delegation may now present their case for full membership in the Galactic Council. Ambassador Chun began her carefully prepared speech about Earth's achievements, their desire for peaceful cooperation, and their readiness to contribute to galactic society. But the aliens weren't really listening. To them, humans were just another primitive species barely out of their planet's gravity well. Soft, squishy beings with laughably short lifespans and no natural weapons. The Krithari delegate, a massive creature covered in natural armor plating, interrupted with a dismissive wave of its 4 arms. Why should we accept such weak beings? They have no claws, no natural defenses. Their military technology is centuries behind ours. What could they possibly offer? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Vorthan representative, whose species could survive in the vacuum of space, added, "They can't even breathe in most atmospheres. They require constant temperature regulation. They're fragile." Rodriguez shifted slightly behind the ambassador. His movement was small, but something about it made several nearby aliens step back instinctively. The Etherian counselor, a being of pure thought energy, projected amusement. Look at them. They still rely on verbal communication. Their minds are closed, limited. They can't even perceive half the dimensional frequencies we use daily. Ambassador Chun maintained her diplomatic composure, but Rodriguez noticed her hands trembling slightly. 20 years of humanity's diplomatic efforts were crumbling in minutes. The Saurian delegate stood, its reptilian form towering 15 feet tall. "I propose we table this discussion. Humanity clearly needs several more centuries of development before they're ready for consideration." "There's simply two." A sharp crack echoed through the chamber. Everyone turned to see Rodriguez had stepped forward and slammed his fist down on the human platform's railing. The supposedly indestructible alien alloy had cracked under the impact. "With respect, Ambassador," Rodriguez said quietly, his voice carrying in the sudden silence, "may I address the council?" Chun hesitated, then nodded. This wasn't in the protocol, but they were losing anyway. Rodriguez walked to the front of the platform. He wasn't wearing his dress blues, just a simple black suit that couldn't hide the way he moved, like a predator among prey. "You think we're weak," he said, his voice calm, but carrying an edge that made universal translators struggle. "You see our lack of claws and think we're defenseless. Our short lives make you think we're insignificant." He smiled, and several aliens unconsciously moved back. "I'm going to tell you about Earth. Not the diplomatic version. The real one. We evolved on a world that tries to kill us every day. Gravity that would crush half of you. Weather that ranges from freezing our blood solid to boiling it in our veins. Predators that hunted us, diseases that decimated us, and disasters that wiped out 90% of life." The chamber was completely silent now. But we didn't grow armor or claws. We grew something far more dangerous. We grew minds that could turn anything into a weapon. We grew souls that refused to break. We grew hearts that beat for those beside us, even unto death. He paused, letting his words sink in. "I serve in something we call the Marines. Want to know what that means? It means I was trained to fight in any environment, with any weapon, against any enemy. It means I learned that the human body can survive things that would kill most of you 3 times over. It means I know 17 ways to kill with objects in this room that you don't even recognize as weapons." The Krithari delegate's armor plates rattled nervously. "You talk about our weak bodies? I've seen humans survive with half their organs shut down. I've watched men and women carry others twice their weight through conditions that would melt your fancy shields. I've known humans who kept fighting with broken bones, who stayed conscious through pain that your species would die from experiencing. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Even the energy beings had stopped their constant humming. Rodriguez continued, his voice growing harder. You think our technology is primitive? Let me tell you something about human warfare. We split the atom 70 years after learning to fly. We went from horses to space travel in less than a century. While your species spent millennia perfecting one type of weapon, we created thousands. Why? Because we're not strong. We're not fast. We're not telepathic. So we learn to be smart. We learn to be creative. We learn to be absolutely, terrifyingly adaptable. The Zafrani Supreme Counselor leaned forward, its ethereal form flickering with interest. You speak of violence as if it's a virtue. No, Rodriguez shook his head. I speak of survival. And, more importantly, I speak of what we survive to become. He turned to face the entire assembly. Do you know what makes humans truly dangerous? It's not our weapons or our willingness to fight. It's that we pack bond with anything. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. We befriend our predators and turn them into companions. We form emotional connections with inanimate objects. We'll die for strangers we've never met. And when someone threatens those we've bonded with, his voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the vast chamber. We become something that should be impossible. The Vorthan representative scoffed. Pretty word from a primitive. Rodriguez moved. One moment he was standing still. The next he had vaulted over the platform railing, crossed 20 feet of empty space that should have been impossible for a human to jump, and landed on the Vorthan's platform. Security systems screamed alerts, but Rodriguez just stood there, hands empty and relaxed. I just crossed a gap your own scientists say human musculature shouldn't be able to manage, he said conversationally. Want to know how? Adrenaline. Our bodies have a chemical override system. When we need to, we can literally break our own limiters. We can lift weights that should tear our muscles, run at speeds that damage our joints, and keep going when physics says we should be dead. The Vorthan had backed against its platform railing, all four eyes wide. Rodriguez turned to address the council. But that's not what makes us dangerous. What makes us dangerous is that I didn't come here to hurt anyone. I came here because my friend asked me to. He gestured to Ambassador Chun. She believes in peace, in diplomacy, in building bridges between our peoples. And because she believes in it, because she spent her life working toward it, I'll stand here and let you insult my species. I'll endure your condescension. I'll smile while you dismiss everything we are. He jumped back to the human platform, landing lightly. But if you threaten her, if you threaten Earth, if you threaten any human or anyone we've decided to protect, he smiled again, and this time it was the smile of a predator. Then, you'll learn why humanity's children tell stories about monsters being afraid of the dark. The Etherian counselor projected curiosity. You claim to be peaceful, yet you threaten us? I don't threaten, Rodriguez said simply. I explain. You see, humans have saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We try talking first. We prefer peace. Most of us go our whole lives without ever throwing a punch. But when talking fails, he pulled out a small device from his pocket. Several security systems targeted him immediately. Relax, he said, pressing a button. A hologram appeared showing Earth. I want to show you something. This is our home. Pretty, isn't it? Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. Looks peaceful from up here. The image zoomed in, showing cities, farmlands, children playing in parks. Now let me show you what happened the last time someone thought we were weak. The image changed to historical footage. Normandy, Stalingrad, Iwo Jima. This is what humans do when pushed. We threw millions of our own into meat grinders rather than surrender. We fought in conditions that would kill most sapients just from exposure. We developed weapons that could end our own world rather than let tyranny win. The footage kept playing. Humans charging into certain death. Medics running through fire to save wounded. Soldiers throwing themselves on grenades to save their squad. We did this to each other, Rodriguez said quietly. Imagine what we do to protect our world from outside threats. The Saurian delegate's scales had shifted to a defensive pattern. You're insane. Your entire species is insane. By your standards? Probably, Rodriguez agreed. We feel too much. We love too hard. We hope too stubbornly. We'll die for ideas, for principles, for people we've never met. We'll sacrifice ourselves for the chance that others might live. We're a species that looks at the impossible and asks why not. He shut off the hologram. But here's the thing. We don't want to fight you. We want to be your friends. We want to trade, to learn, to explore together. We want to show you what human stubbornness can build when turned toward creation instead of destruction. We want to share our music, our art, our stories. We want to learn yours. The chamber remained silent, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not dismissive, but contemplative. The Crithari delegate, despite its massive size and natural armor, seemed smaller somehow as it spoke. You say you want peace, but everything about your species screams violence. How can we trust you? Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. Let me tell you about my squad. 8 men and women who I served with for 3 years. Different backgrounds, different beliefs, different everything. We had a guy from Texas who'd never seen the ocean before joining. A woman from Japan who could have been a concert pianist. A kid from Detroit who joined to escape gang life. An immigrant from Mexico who wanted to earn citizenship. He paused, lost in memory for a moment. We fought together, bled together. The pianist? She died saving the kid from Detroit. Threw herself on an IED. The Texan lost both legs, pulling our translator out of a burning vehicle. The immigrant? He's now a teacher, using his combat pay to build schools in war zones. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. What Marcus is trying to say is that humans are contradictions. We're capable of terrible violence, yes, but that capacity comes from the same place as our capacity for love, for sacrifice, for creation. We feel everything so intensely that it transforms us. The Zafrani Supreme Counselor's form pulsed thoughtfully. Show us more. Help us understand. Rodriguez nodded and pulled up new holograms. Humans do insane things. We strap ourselves to controlled explosions to reach space. We dive to the bottom of our oceans in metal cans. We climb our highest mountains without breathing equipment just to prove we can. We inject ourselves with weakened diseases to become immune. We split atoms for power. We literally hurl ourselves from functioning aircraft with nothing but fabric to slow our fall, and we do it for fun. Nervous laughter rippled through some of the delegates. But here's what you really need to understand, Rodriguez continued. We do the same thing with relationships. We adopt orphans from species that try to eat us. We risk our lives to save animals that can't even comprehend what we're doing. We form emotional bonds with robots, with ships, with weapons. There are humans who've died refusing to leave their pets in disaster zones. He brought up an image of a human child playing with an alien creature on one of Earth's colonies. The creature was from a species considered dangerous by most of the galaxy, but the child was laughing, completely unafraid. This is humanity. We see something dangerous, and our first thought isn't always, how do I kill it? Often it's, I wonder if it wants to be friends? We're the species that looked at wolves, predators that hunted us, and thought, I bet these would make great companions. Now dogs are part of our families. The Etherian counselor projected a complex emotion that translated roughly as bewildered fascination. You domesticated your predators? We domesticated ourselves first, Rodriguez said. We took all that aggression, all that tribalism, all those killer instincts, and we channeled them. Not always successfully. We fail. We fall back into old patterns. But we keep trying. Every generation, we try to be better than the last. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. You want to know if you could trust us? Here's the truth. Humans will die for their friends. And we make friends easily. Stupidly easily. Give us half a chance, and we'll pack bond with your entire species. We'll adopt your cultural holidays. We'll learn your languages badly and enthusiastically. We'll marry your people and have impossible hybrid children through sheer, stubborn determination and medical science. That got some surprised reactions. Several species consider the idea of cross-species relationships biologically impossible, let alone producing offspring. Impossible is just a challenge to us, Rodriguez said, reading their expressions. We've already figured out how to splice genes from one Earth species to another. You think we won't figure out how to have families with beings we love just because they're from different worlds? The Saurian delegate made a rumbling sound. You speak of love as if it's strength. It is, Rodriguez said firmly. Love is why I can stand here, surrounded by beings who could kill me with a thought, and feel no fear. Because I'm not here for me. I'm here for the 7 billion humans who dream of the stars. For the children who look up at night and wonder if someone's looking back. For every human who believes we can be better than our history. He straightened, and suddenly he looked taller, more dangerous, more alien than any being in the room. I've killed. In war, in defense, in situations where there was no choice. I'm trained to do it efficiently, quickly, without hesitation. But do you know what takes more strength than killing? Not killing. Choosing peace when every instinct screams for war. Offering a hand when history says to make a fist. The chamber fell silent again. Rodriguez walked back to stand beside Ambassador Chun, who was trying very hard not to cry. Humanity applies for membership, not because we're perfect, Chun said, her voice steady despite the emotion. We apply because we're trying to be better. We've made mistakes. We've fought wars. We've nearly destroyed ourselves more times than we can count. But we survived, and we learned, and we're ready to bring everything we are to this community. She gestured to Rodriguez. Yes, we have warriors. People trained to do violence when necessary. But we also have dreamers, artists, scientists, teachers. We have people who dedicate their lives to helping others, to building, to discovering. We're not one thing. We're everything, all at once, turned up to 11. The Vorthan representative suddenly stood, its form shimmering with agitation. Pretty words. But words are easy. If humans are so formidable, so adaptable, prove it. Here. Now. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. What kind of proof would satisfy you? Before the Vorthan could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. The massive view screens that lined the walls flickered to life, showing a sight that made every being present freeze in terror. A devour swarm, a plague of biomechanical entities that had consumed 3 systems already, had somehow breached the station's outer defenses. Impossible, the Krithri delegates stammered. The shields, the weapons platforms. On the screens, they could see the swarm adapting to every defense, learning, evolving in real time. Security forces were falling back, unable to stop the tide of ever-changing hostile organisms. The Zafrani Supreme Counselor's form flickered with fear. Evacuate the station. Signal the fleet to implement Scorched Star Protocol. We'll have to destroy the entire— Wait, Rodriguez interrupted, already moving. How long until they reach this chamber? 20 minutes, perhaps 25, an aide responded, panic clear in its ultrasonic voice. Rodriguez turned to Ambassador Chun. Ma'am, I need you to trust me. She nodded without hesitation. He spun to face the council. You want proof of what humans can do? Give me command of your security forces. Let me show you why Earth children sleep, safely knowing monsters fear the dark. The Saurian delegate roared in disbelief. You're one primitive against a swarm that has consumed armies. I'm one human, Rodriguez corrected. And, more importantly, I'm a Marine. Ambassador, I need you to patch me through to the Beijing. Tell Captain Wong we need the emergency kit. Authorization Romeo 77. Chen's eyes widened. Marcus, I know what it is, he said calmly, then turned to the council. You have about 30 seconds to decide. Give me command or watch your station die. The counselors looked at each other, millennia of precedent warring with immediate survival. The Etherian was the first to decide. Give him command. What do we have to lose? Within seconds, Rodriguez had access to the station's security systems. His fingers flew over interfaces designed for a dozen different species, adapting instantly. All security teams, this is Colonel Rodriguez, United States Marine Corps. I have command authorization. Fall back to checkpoints 7 through 12. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Just run. Confused voices flooded the channels. The swarm never gave you time to regroup. You fought or you died. Trust me, Rodriguez barked. Move. Engineering teams, I need you to override safety protocols on sections 15 through 20. Vent those sections to space on my mark. Medical teams, prepare for chemical exposure treatments. Anyone with electromagnetic shielding, power it down now. The Crithary security chief's voice crackled through. Human, you're insane. Venting those sections will funnel them exactly where I want them, Rodriguez finished. How long until the Beijing's package arrives? 3 minutes, Chen reported. On the screens, the swarm hit the abandoned checkpoints and paused confused. They were learning predators, expecting resistance. The absence of it made them cautious. Perfect, Rodriguez muttered. Security teams, I need volunteers. Anyone willing to trust a crazy human, report to Armory 6. To everyone's surprise, voices began responding. Not many but some. The security chief was among them. Good, Rodriguez said. When you get there, you'll find a crate from Earth. Don't open it until I give the signal. Just move it to Junction 9 Alpha. The Vorthan delegate watched the screens in confusion. They're spreading out, searching. You're letting them into the station's heart. I'm letting them think they're winning, Rodriguez corrected. Humans have been persistence hunters for millions of years. You know what that means? We don't chase prey. We make prey chase itself to exhaustion. He input more commands, sealing some passages, opening others. To the council, it looked random. To Rodriguez, it was a trap 200,000 years of human evolution in the making. Beijing package in position, someone reported. Outstanding. Open it. Distribute contents to all volunteers. Put them on, but don't activate until my signal. The Zafrani leaned forward. What did you send for? Rodriguez smiled grimly. Something we developed fighting in places where you couldn't see your enemy. Where they could be anywhere, anything. Something that turns our greatest weakness into our greatest strength. On the screens, the swarm had reached the designated junction. Thousands of adaptable, evolving killing machines, confident in their approaching victory. Now, Rodriguez said softly. The volunteers activated their equipment. Suddenly, every screen flared with blinding light and deafening sound. The human devices were crude by galactic standards, nothing but advanced flashbangs and sonic disruptors. But they were designed by a species that had turned sensory overload into an art form. The swarm reeled. They could adapt to energy weapons, to projectiles, to almost anything. But they couldn't adapt quickly enough to pure chaos. Strobing lights at frequencies that disrupted their neural analogs. Sounds that interfered with their bioelectric communication. Chemical irritants that confused their sensing organs. Go, 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 Rodriguez shouted. The volunteers moved in, not with energy weapons, but with primitive human firearms loaded with specialized rounds. White phosphorus, thermite, acids, things that burned, corroded, destroyed on a chemical level that the swarm's rapid evolution couldn't immediately counter. But Rodriguez wasn't done. Engineering, vent sections 15 through 20 now. Medical teams, deploy the countermeasures. As vacuum sucked portions of the swarm into space, medical teams released clouds of targeted biological agents. Diseases engineered not to kill, but to confuse, to slow, to interfere with the swarm's adaptation mechanisms. You're fighting them with primitives' weapons and diseases? The Saurian asked in disbelief. No, Rodriguez said, never taking his eyes off the tactical displays. I'm fighting them with chaos. You fight the swarm with order, with energy, with predictable responses they can adapt to. We're hitting them with everything at once. Chemical, biological, kinetic, thermal, sonic, optical. They can adapt to any one thing, but can they adapt to everything simultaneously? The answer became clear on the screens. The swarm was faltering, its perfect coordination breaking down. Individual units tried to adapt to different threats, creating evolutionary conflicts within their own collective. Security teams, Phase 2, switched to cryo rounds. Alternate with incendiary on 3-second intervals. Make them choose between ice and fire. The Etherian counselor pulsed with something like awe. They're retreating? It was true. For the first time in recorded history, a devour swarm was falling back, unable to cope with the sheer unpredictability of human warfare. Not retreating, Rodriguez corrected. Hurting. Station AI, on my mark, overload power grid in sections 12 and 13. Everyone else, brace for impact. He waited until the bulk of the swarm had pulled back into those sections, then mark. The lights went out throughout the station for a heartbeat. When they came back on, sections 12 and 13 were gone, vaporized by a deliberate overload that turned the station's own power core into a weapon. The remaining swarm units, cut off from the collective, milled in confusion. Security teams moved in with methodical precision, mopping up with a combination of conventional weapons and human improvisational madness. One soldier was using a jury-rigged flamethrower made from cleaning supplies. Another had somehow turned a medical scanner into an electromagnetic pulse generator. Within minutes, it was over. The Devour Swarm, terror of 3 systems, adapter to any weapon, learner of any strategy, had been defeated by one human with security codes and a crate of primitive weapons. Rodriguez sagged against the command console, exhaustion finally showing. Ambassador, please tell Captain Wong thank you. And that we're going to need a new emergency kit. The chamber erupted. Delegates who had been frozen in terror were now talking, shouting, expressing disbelief and amazement in 100 different ways. The swarm had never been stopped before. Entire fleets had fallen to them. And one human had just orchestrated their defeat using tools that most civilizations had abandoned millennia ago. The Critheri's security chief's voice came through the comm, rough with emotion. Human Rodriguez, my clan owes you a life debt. All our clans do. How did you know? Rodriguez straightened, turning to address the entire council. Because humans have been fighting enemies that adapt for our entire existence. Bacteria that evolve resistance to antibiotics. Cancers that mutate around treatments. Other humans who learn our tactics. We never developed one perfect weapon because we learned early that there's no such thing. So we developed everything. And, more importantly, we learned to use everything at once. The Zafrani Supreme Counselor floated forward. You turned our station into a weapon. Used our own systems against the enemy. Deployed diseases as weapons. Created chaos as a strategy. And saved every life on this station. Ambassador, Chen added firmly. That's what humans do. We adapt. We improvise. We overcome. And we do it to protect others. The Vorthan representative, who had been silent since the attack began, suddenly spoke. I was wrong. You're not weak. You're not primitive. You're... It paused, searching for words. You're terrifyingly creative. Rodriguez managed a tired smile. Wait until you see what we can do when we're not fighting. When human creativity is turned toward art, science, exploration. When our stubbornness is aimed at curing diseases or reaching impossible stars. When our pack bonding instincts make your enemies our enemies, and your children our children. The Saurian delegate rumbled thoughtfully. You said humans would die for their friends. Would you have died today? For us? For beings who insulted and dismissed your entire species? Yes, Rodriguez said without hesitation. Because the ambassador believes in a future where humans and aliens work together. Where my grandchildren grow up with yours. Where the stars belong to all of us. And if she believes it's worth dying for, then it is. Chen stepped forward, tears now flowing freely. This is humanity, respected counselors. We're not perfect. We're not the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. But we're here, we're stubborn, and we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to learn from you, grow with you, face the universe's challenges together. The council chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, the Etherian counselor began to pulse in the pattern that indicated approval. One by one, others joined. The Critheri delegate stood and slammed all 4 fists against its chest in salute. The Saurian lowered its massive head in respect. The Zafrani Supreme Counselor spoke for all. The vote will be taken in the formal session, but I believe I speak for many when I say humanity has shown us something today. Not just strength or cleverness or courage, though you showed all of these. You showed us a mirror, made us see our own assumptions and prejudices. made us realize that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the one with the biggest weapons or the strongest shields. Sometimes it's the one who refuses to give up. Rodriguez swayed slightly, the adrenaline finally wearing off. The Crithari security chief appeared at his side, offering support that the human gratefully accepted. So, the Supreme Counselor continued, I call for immediate preliminary vote. All in favor of beginning full membership proceedings for humanity. The vote wasn't unanimous. It never was, but it was overwhelming. Humanity had gone from dismissed primitives to respected candidates in one chaotic hour. As medical teams arrived to check on Rodriguez, he looked up at the viewing screens showing Earth, blue, and beautiful in the void. Hey, Ambassador, he said quietly. Think they're ready for us? Chen laughed through her tears. Are we ready for them? Rodriguez grinned, the expression making him look years younger. Ma'am, we're human. We're never ready. We just jump in and figure it out as we go. Around them, the Galactic Council, ancient, wise, powerful, began to truly understand what they had just voted to unleash upon the universe. Not a species of warriors, though humans could fight. Not a race of diplomats, though they could make peace. Something far more unpredictable. They had voted to accept a species that looked at the impossible and asked why not. A species that would pack bond with the universe itself if given half a chance. The galaxy would never be the same.